Well, you know, I really appreciate our military, and I've made some of my best friends are in the military, and I've made a lot of great friends over the years. You know, through a very tragic situation of September 11th and all of that, positive things grew out of that tragedy, and some great relationships were made, and I know a lot of people that kind of stepped up after that event and wanted to do something to give back and to help our military and to support our first responders and to just serve. And that's what it was for me. I mean, I think the 80s and 90s kind of prepared me for the level of service that I'm at now, which is a very committed and full-time thing. But we have a lot of residual effects after over a dozen years of war. You know, this has been a long war. It's been a long haul for our military. And, you know, I think it's helpful for them to know that there are people that aren't in the service that are right there with them and have been, you know, for over a decade, you know, since they've been deploying and sacrificing, and their families have gone through a lot. And I've met a lot of great people, and they inspire me every day.
When you visit the different hospitals or whatnot, sometimes amputees, how often do they bring up your character from Forrest Gump as maybe, you know, somebody who, in the movie kind of goes through this transformation? Do you feel like they can kind of relate at all, even though you're, you know, an actor playing an amputee?
Yeah, I've certainly had that happen a lot. You know, before I did CSI New York, before I was on television every week for 9 years. I wasn't really that recognizable, except as that character in Forrest Gump. People didn't even know my real name. In fact, it's funny, when I tried to get the USO's attention back in 03, when I wanted to volunteer for the USO, I left a few messages on the phone machine. This is Gary Sinise. I'd like to volunteer for the USO. Can you call me back? And I didn't hear anything. And then called him again and said, "This is Gary Sinise. And, you know, can you call me back? I'd like to volunteer to go on a tour." And then didn't hear anything back. And then so I called him up and I said, "This is the guy that played Lieutenant Dan. Can you call me back? I'd like to go on a tour." And then I got a call back after that. So I wasn't very well known in prior to CSI New York, and certainly within the military. But now, having been, I played hundreds of USO shows and military shows, and raised money and done all kinds of things. The military knows me pretty well, and I'll walk into a hospital room and they'll recognize me from the movie, but they also know who I am now. But in the early days, I used to walk into those hospital rooms and they'd just say Lieutenant Dan. And they'd have the kind of gallows humor thing, about themselves and how they're like Lieutenant Dan and that kind of thing. You know what? I realized then that that particular character was kind of an icebreaker for them. It was a conversation starter for somebody who's laying in a hospital bed. And I could talk to them about the character and the resilience of the character and the hope at the end of that story that he's moving on with his life, and even though he's going through some really dark times and some difficult things, he's going to be okay, and he moves on. And that's a very positive story that we want for all our wounded veterans.